Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hey there. Welcome. It's a Monday. The sun's out. Temperature's going to get above 32. Be some of that ice will melt. Never saw a city snowplow on my street throughout the last few weeks with all the snow. Not once. Which was not the case under the last administration. I don't understand, but I'm just saying I've been unable to walk from my home because my street is literally lethal for me. As an old lady with flying buttresses and screws in her spine, I can hardly chance a nasty fall, even though I've had little falls. Hey, did I also tell you? Yes, I did. In that show on Thursday, that was all my fault. That was my my cell phone had gone south, and Susan later, I called Susan, and she's tech savvy, and she helped me fix the problem, so there shouldn't be that issue today. I want to again say something I said then, which some of you may have heard, that after this week's shows, I am taking I believe the term is hiatus for 1 month because my mental and physical health demand it. So I'm hoping to engage in some self-care and return in a month in markedly better condition. Actually, with a brain that's operating a little bit better and some energy and all of that. This has been, as you know, we've all been exhausted by these times. And those of us with political awareness, especially, and it's taken a toll on me, and I can't ignore that anymore. I need to just go away, reset, hope to reclaim myself a little bit. Okay, so that's what I'm doing. I'll remind you of that throughout the week. And I think it'll be good for all of us. Because, I mean, really, do you need to hear this constantly? Misery loves company, I'll tell you. The show for you. So I'm hoping that's not going to be quite as true when I come back, but odds are it will be. So let's just get going. I can't get into watching the Olympics with any regularity, mostly because I know outcomes before they happen, and it's it's that time difference thing, and also because it just, I don't know. It really was something I used to gobble up. I used to be so, and I still am amazed at the fearlessness and athleticism and that is exhibited by these athletes. I mean, it is mind-blowing to watch the best do things that are sometimes seemingly impossible and often death-defying. Here we are throughout this pandemic making risk assessments all the time, right? Dare I go to that friend's home with 3 other people I don't quite know, but my friend assures me are okay? These risk assessing? And you look at these guys, who obviously must do risk assessment as well, but have a much higher comfort level with risk. It's just extraordinary. So I do want to say that I watch in awe. I often watch in bemusement when I don't, like curling, when I, don't quite get the sport. But it is amazing. It is amazing what these people can do. But for some reason, you just can't quite get into it this time around. Okay, that's all I'm saying on that. Cross the Olympics off my page. The most astonishing story that happened since last we spoke was that vote taken apparently without debate, without a second of anybody suggesting that it was, I don't even know what the word is, I'm sorry, that it was like a signal that the party was dead. The fact that the Republican National Committee, that's the guys who supposedly oversee one of the two major political parties in the United States. And on Friday, as you know, they voted to condemn two of their own, send them out into the wilderness for the crime of actually working in a bipartisan way, trying to get to the bottom of what exactly happened on January 6th. The condemnation of Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, right? But it was in the resolution in which they condemned them that it said this, and you know this, but I still can't even. They were accused of participating in, and here's the words, Republicans, a Democrat-led persecution of ordinary citizens who engaged in legitimate political discourse. Whoa. So there was the Republican Party going on record without even a hint of debate that what you saw on January 6th was ordinary citizens engaging in legitimate political discourse. Oh, later there was an attempt to say, "Oh no, we're talking about their persecution of people who were not, trying to kill police officers, or weren't erecting gallows, or weren't, desecrating and the U.S. Capitol. No, we're talking about all those fine Americans who were like at the speech in which Trump and others incited the mob to do what they did." And that, of course, is bull, because the committee is not going after those people. They're going after people who engaged in the attempt to take the U.S. Capitol and to deny the votes of Americans the presidential election. So it is mind-blowing. If there was any doubt as to what has happened to the Republican Party, wow, there it is. And it's scary. It's scary. truly is frightening. And how many Republicans dared to voice opposition or concern? I saw a tweet by Mitt Romney. Maybe there was one or two others. I don't know. But all the rest fallen in behind Donald Trump. Wow. And the big lie. And that's scary. That is just flat out. Hey, what does this mean? I came on this. This is so. I'm just so not ready for what's coming. I mean, none of us are, but this has to do with something unpolitical, non-political. It has to do with where we're heading in terms of tech and all of this stuff that I'm coming to a point where I can tell I'm jumping ship. I'm not even going to attempt to comprehend and to stay apace. I'm just going to, like all those when I was a child, old people who were on the phone and they were talking long distance. They would scream, "Can you hear me?" You know, that's sort of where I'm going to be when it comes to wherever all this technology is taking us. I just can't. I will in as much as I have to, but I'm making those calculations. So when I was going through my Twitter feed the other day, I came on this. I just took a screenshot. It says this. It's an ad. It's a come on from Twitter. It says, introducing NFT profile pictures. NFTs are digital items that you own, non-fungible tokens. Proof of ownership is stored on a blockchain, a digital database that is publicly accessible. Now, you see, they're trying to explain. They say NFTs, and then they tell you what those are, and then they tell you how you can own them and how your ownership is recorded on something called a blockchain, which is a digital database that is accessible, yada, yada, yada. And then it says learn more if you want. You had to, click on that. Well, I didn't want to learn more because all I got was, okay, oh, wow, my profile picture on Twitter can be an NFT that I own? Who gives a shit? And then they say, so what does this mean? And it's NFT profile pictures are displayed in a special hexagonal shape. Oh, well, there, I'm in. Did they say hexagon? Well, I'm in. And to choose an NFT as your profile picture, you must connect your crypto wallet. Ladies and gentlemen, I just want to tell you, I don't have a crypto wallet. I'm not going to have an NFT profile picture that proof of my ownership of my own picture in some hexagon is going to be publicly accessible that I own it. Who cares? What is this crap? I don't understand anything anymore. I don't get it. And you know what? I'm not interested. So wherever the world's going, go without me. Jeez. You didn't happen to see that the Port Authority has closed down a bridge now. Yeah. It's some bridge that the South Busway goes over. Goes over Sawmill Run Boulevard. They were I guess looking at it, somebody bothered to stop by and inspect it, and couldn't help but notice that I think they said that something had, I believe the word was shifted. Yeah, here it is. A Port Authority bridge that carries the South Busway over Sawmill Run Boulevard in the Mount Washington area will remain closed because engineers discovered Friday that a portion of the bridge had shifted. Wonderful. Okay, so that's another bridge. Cross that one off. Oh, man. Oh, so when you look at the grand old party and what they're up to, telling us that January 6th, legitimate political discourse by, oh God, ordinary citizens. Wow, they just entered that, that Nazi-ish area where you just grab onto a lie and keep repeating it. And eventually people just fall in line despite what they've seen. It's amazing. Again, frightening. But back to what this wonderful party, the American Fascist Party, formerly known as the Grand Old Party, the American Fascist Party in Iowa is onto something. Well, they're attempting. They've put in the hoppers of their state legislature a bill that would require cameras to be installed in every K through 12 school classroom across the state. Can you imagine? Oh, this ain't Big Brother. This ain't Big Brother. Oh, no. Every time a child in Iowa is in school, they will be being watched. More importantly, their teacher will be being watched. And these cameras are not just there for some Big Brother to monitor. No, because, we're talking how many classrooms? Every classroom in the state? No, they are there so that the conscientious parents of the students, some with time on their hands, can sit in the classroom hour after hour after hour just waiting to catch the teacher saying something they don't like. Unbelievable. Do you remember the old the grand old party, the Republicans who were for less government? It turns out what they want less government doing is minding corporate America, minding the capitalists. That they don't think government should do. But when it comes to minding us, that they're totally on board with. When it comes to minding and monitoring women and their bodies, they're on it. Elbowing doctors aside. This is a totally now authoritarian party. A white nationalist authoritarian party. Its members held in the sway of a narcissistic, mentally ill con man grifter. It's really something to behold. It's really something. I want to do my obit of the day here. This is Todd Gitlin. This is somebody who, during the 60s, I was a fan of, and since the 60s, remained a fan of, even as he became somewhat critical of where the left had gone, which got him in hot water with some lefties. And to this day, he died at the age of 79. But it's something that he pointed out that really resonated with me. I'll just read from the obit in the New York Times. He would go on to regard much of the establishment news media as tools of the profit-driven corporate state it covered. Now that is there it is in a nutshell. And it's exactly right. And it's why I have such disgust at what I am seeing in this very consequential time of the actions of so much of corporate media. But Gitlin would say, what do you expect? The vast majority, not all, the vast majority of the establishment news media, all those TV networks that you get your news from, absolutely. A lot of the newspapers, some of the best, and I would argue the New York Times for sure, is in this boat. This is establishment news media that are really tools of the profit-driven corporate state that the media supposedly covers. And the goal of these two working in tandem is to perpetuate the status quo. There it is. There it is. And I saw a tweet that just sums it up. I think I saw it this morning. Here it is. A guy named Zach Bornstein wrote it. He said, okay, he notes, so the Joe Rogan discourse, you know, Joe Rogan and Spotify and Neil Young and whether Spotify should allow this anti-vaxxing racist who's extremely popular and who they pay he's got $100 million contract with Spotify. Zach Bornstein says, Joe Rogan discourse has now lasted longer than last week's news that Trump made plans to have the military seize voting machines. There it is. There is what Gitlin is talking about. The establishment news media are tools of the profit-driven corporate state, and the fix that they're both working toward is to perpetuate the status quo. And the news media move on from a story about the White House under Trump actually making plans to seize voting machines, seeing if the military would do it. That story, lasted a day, maybe two. But this Joe Rogan stuff and other stuff like it, it goes on and on breathlessly. So Gitlin was right. He often was. He is called in this a contemplative activist. Yeah. He was the head of the Students for Democratic Society, SDS, after Tom Hayden, who founded it. Tom Hayden, Jane Fonda's erstwhile Hubby before Ted Turner. So, a good man, a man who saw things clearly and wasn't afraid to speak his mind. I'll miss him, Todd Gitlin. He wrote constantly, so you probably at some point saw his work. I want to share with you something. I was incoherent on Thursday, mostly because I was such a wreck after not being able to get the show started and just generally not in a good state. And this was right after Whoopi said what she said about the Holocaust not having to do with race, that it was just white people killing white people, so what the hell did she care? I was incoherent. I was so... You know how sometimes something is said and you're just like... I couldn't think. And thank God other people were capable. And there was the best piece I wrote. I wish I read about it was in the Atlantic, I believe. And it was written by who dis? Get it for you. Adam Serwer. And I suggest you look it up. Whoopi Goldberg's American Idea of Race. And it is so compellingly smart. And I'm not going to sit and read it to you. I'm hoping that if I just share a few tidbits of it with you, that you'll get some of it. I have noted before that when Hitler came to power and the Nazis were, planning on what they were going to do, they looked to the United States and to its Jim Crow laws, which had continued to pass muster with our Supreme Court. They looked at Jim Crow laws that denied Black Americans the same rights that white Americans had. And they were dazzled by these laws and say, well, see, you can do this. You can do this in a democratic society. Keep an entire race under your thumb. So there's always been, and we don't like admitting it, a connection between the Nazi Holocaust in Europe and slavery and Jim Crow in the United States. Because they both come from the same place, the same ideology. That's what it is. Race is an ideological idea. It is not fact. In fact, it ain't real. It's a made-up construct. But the Nazis and the United States both believe that human beings, and the United States still largely does, the people of the United States, that human beings can be put into categories. And those categories in which they're put share biological traits, distinguishing them and determining their potential and their behavior. Now, in Europe, it was the Jews that were often the other. Jews, the Roma as well. The conception in Europe that Jews were a biological race with particular characteristics was, of course, what the Nazis used as the basis for trying to exterminate them. It wasn't their religion. It was their race. This is what Whoopi didn't get, and what so many Americans do not get, and especially so many on the left don't get. They see Jews, they see white. That's what Whoopi saw, not what Hitler saw. In the United States, the invention of race, and it was used to justify slavery. So all the white people who wanted the black people to do all the work for nothing told themselves that black people were biologically just unfit for, citizenship, but they were very well suited for slavery. Slavery and the persecution of Jews are branches of the same tree, and that is the biological fiction of race. Comes in handy when you're in a position of power and want to single a group out. Or, in the case of the Nazis, I don't know exactly what. Escape, I don't quite even can't go. I understand the American one with the blacks, because what better system is there to make money hand over fist than not have to do a damn bit of work yourself and not have to pay the people who are doing all the work, not even have to acknowledge they're humans. I mean, for the Nazis to kill a Jew, the Jew didn't have to be religious. The Jew didn't have to even in any way have anything to do with their religion. If it was the Nazis killed Jews because of their religion, then Jews left and right could have, to save their lives, converted. Right? Home free. I ain't going to Auschwitz. I just became a Christian. That didn't work. And it didn't work to 3 to 4 generations back if you had, and blacks in America know this, if you had any Jewish blood, you were going to be dealt with because you were adulterating the Aryan people. Adolf Hitler later said that he didn't initially understand that Jews were a separate race. And he regretted that. I guess time lost. And he understood that Jews were, and here's why the Nazis had to try to kill them all. The Jews were a separate race who were put on this earth for one reason, and that is to enslave the rest of mankind. Jeez. I didn't realize that was what I was put on earth for. Jeez. Jews are here, to enslave the rest of mankind. Jews will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. So, and this idea, even Jews get screwy with this. What are Jews? Are they a race? Well, we know that race is bullshit, so not. Are they a religion? Well, yeah, but you can be a Jew and not practice the religion, so not really. It can't be a race either, because you, a Christian, can convert to Judaism and join the race. And you won't have any of those so-called biological factors that supposedly make it a race. So the Jews have never fit into any of Western ideas of categories that people should be in. Not quite a religion because, well, as I've noted, you're a Jew whether you practice it or not. Not quite a race because somebody who's not of the race can join it. And not just a culture, which I sort of always thought it was, or an ethnicity. I always said that Jews are a tribe. But because that's not quite right, because then that leaves out all of the, religious components of it that are there. So Jews are where we do not fit. And the reality is Black Americans are not really a race either. I love that show, Finding Your Roots, with Henry Louis Gates, where he goes, and it's fascinating when the Black guests he has on learn their DNA makeup, because some of them who are Black in their heads, in their hearts, in every way, turn out to be more than 50% European. Right there shows the absurdity of the whole idea of race as a biological construct. The very concept of race implies a reality where none exists. And we're living in a time in which an entire political party has said, this is incredibly easy ground to traverse. You would think it wouldn't be. Take something that doesn't exist and make it a central idea of how you're going to order the world. It works. Race is an ideology, that's how you pronounce it. And it came into existence because it had to, because people in power needed it. Now, I'm going to read to you what this article starts with in The Atlantic, Adam Serwer, okay? He starts by quoting a New York Daily News sports reporter. And he was, Jesus God, and he was covering basketball. And here is what he said he talked about the fact that this certain group dominated basketball. These guys dominated basketball. And then he tries to explain it. After all, by the way, the sports writer is a guy named Paul Gallico, Daily News sports editor. And he says, after all, the game places a premium on an alert, scheming mind and flashy trickiness, artful dodging, and general smart aleckness. Not to mention their God-given better balance and speed. You know what he was talking about? Jews. Because in the 1930s, there were tons of Jews that were the basketball players. And he was trying to explain to his audience in New York why Jews dominated the sport of basketball. Because they had alert, scheming minds and trickiness, artful dodging. I didn't know about the better balance and speed stuff. But that's what he's referring to the Jews. And he was trying to explain to his audience why Jews dominated basketball. Oh, he came up with the idea that basketball was just totally suited to the traits of these wily Hebrews and their scheming minds. Now, we listen to that now and you laugh, because now our racial-based theories on who's good at what sports has changed. It's shifted. And this is why we must be vigilant, because these kinds of supposedly explanatory arguments that rely on stereotype and bias and race are, first of all, almost always wrong, and secondly, dangerous. And I forgot what thirdly was. Oh, and they shift. They're totally arbitrary. And they're arbitrary because race is not real. People's need to categorize others and put them in boxes is real. But the boxes people construct and the boxes we even accept are not. They're malleable. They are made to serve the needs of those with the power to define. I hope Whoopi reads this. And he says, and I agree with him, I regard her remarks not as malicious, but as an ignorant projection of that American conception onto circumstances to which it does not apply. Who gets to be white shifts all the time. Italians weren't white for a long time, you guys. The Irish weren't white. Because to be allowed into the white category, well, that was something that the powerful determined. And I don't know what do we do with this? Because most people, their heads are already totally screwed up about this. White people, black people, we're Jews, we're all so screwed up by this. And it is so manipulated by people who want power. I have a caller. Hello.
Hello, this is Kurt.
Oh, hi, Kurt.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Hey, I'm glad you came back to this, because I was really thinking about calling you the other day and sort of chickened out. But when I heard about the Whoopi thing, I at first thought, well, obviously she's wrong historically, because
right.
You know, the Germans were all about the Aryan race, and really,
that's right.
Not just their oppression of the Jews, who had a special place in their contempt, but, you know, the whole war was about race for them. So she was historically wrong, but beyond that, I kind of immediately went to what you were just talking about. Well, like, is we a different race? I mean, if two people walk into a room and see you and I, are they going to see anything but two white Europeans and find out later maybe that one's Jewish and one's gay, but that's just totally accidental. So,
right.
So I came around to that too, and it seemed like, well, you know, once you start arguing about race, you're arguing about, you know, how many angels can sit on the head of a pin almost, because it's right. a human construct. But even going a step further, there's I think, a little bit of white privilege going on here in criticizing Whoopi for, well, two things. One, I mean, she was on a talk show. It wasn't a scholarly work or something she had a lot of time to think about. They were talking about the Mouse book and critical race theory at the same time in public schools, and she kind of, mixed up the two concepts, and I'm not going to beat her up for that, even though, what she said was incorrect. And I hope, presumably, she gets that. But, from her perspective, I can't see 32 different words for snow like the Eskimos can. So are we at all surprised that Whoopi just sees white?
Of course. No, of course not. And, of course not. And Jews in this country, because America and its categories were so focused on having an acceptance of the inferiority of people with dark skin, so obsessive about that Jews, when they came to this country, were able to sort of slip in under the radar and pass as white Europeans, as you say, which was not the case so much with them in Europe, where they'd been ghettoized, where they had been marked, where there wasn't that ability to assimilate. And so, Jews living in this time, in the last 100 years, in this country, have been the luckiest Jews to ever live. I think American Jews would all agree with that. We have had a slice of that white privilege. We have. But that was because we were in this country that was so stuck on black and white, so that the black people stood in for us, where in Europe there was no one to do that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and I know, and I toured Europe and Israel, went to Yad Vashem and some of the Holocaust museums in Amsterdam and Frankfurt, and I'm trying to remember where it was. But this brought up for me how Jews really were considered a race even before the Nazis came along. With there were a couple places where I saw this, and it was sort of seminal in my realization. And sorry to be graphic, but there was I think a bell tower or a clock tower in some town where a Jew was clearly, and this was in the public square, Jews were clearly illustrated ethnically with big nose and curly coarse hair, and there was exactly what it was, but who was shown eating feces. I can't remember if it was from an animal or another human or what. Sure.
And there's lots of art where the Jews are drinking Christian babies' blood. Lots of art.
Yeah.
I haven't seen
it was clearly ethnic and not fringe thinking. Clearly, if it was in the public square for a couple hundred years,
And you know what? You're reminding me of this sculpture that's somewhere in a museum in Russia. And my nephew, my brother's son, was studying in Russia for a year not too long ago, and he sees this sculpture. And he took a picture of it, a profile picture of this face, and sent it off to all of us in the family. And we all just went nuts. It literally looked like my brother had sat for the artist. Oh. It was my brother. And the sculpture was actually a sculpture of the devil. It was a Jew. Yeah. My brother looks like a Jew. And that sculpture looks so much like him. It's like, really, it's unbelievable. I look at it to this day. I've always kept it because it is such a riot. But that's the Jew as the devil. It's everywhere in Western art, literature, everything. Everything. Okay? Well, yeah, I feel for Whoopi too. I do, because I know she's not an anti-Semite, and she's coming from the headline of the article that Sura wrote is what was it? It's about Whoopi Goldberg's American race problem. She's coming at it from her experience, God knows, as a Black American. In America, race is black and white.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And Jews are white. And just like Jews aren't a race or a ethnicity or a this or a that, we're also not white, but we sort of are. So Jews don't fit.
Yeah, well, one of the things you said Friday or Thursday, I guess, too, sat with me about how liberals or Democrats see Jews and not liberals, lefties. Okay,
and it's because of Israel.
With the oppressed group. Yeah, well,
it's because of Israel.
Well, and I related to it a little bit in terms of the gay thing. Is we're seen as having money. We don't have kids, and you're seen as having money because you are.
We're really good at making it. Yeah, there's plenty of poor Jews. I got to tell you, go to Israel and steal.
Apparently.
Yeah, right. Who knew? Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I get that too, because you sort of take. You try to remember what Audre Lorde said about no hierarchy of oppressions, but in some ways there are, and we're not, and gays aren't in the same place as somebody that suffers the real, more active institutional oppression like black folks do. So, I don't know. So,
yes, but wait a minute. Under a Nazi regime, and since we now have
America.
And but now America has a fascist party. There is no doubt about that. The Republican Party is remaking itself into a white nationalist fascist party. They're totally on board with that. And because of that, and I was saying the other day, gays and Jews and start naming them blacks and anybody who doesn't, not as much women, not white women.
Well, I was thinking more of the...
No, I'm thinking of marginalized groups. There's no way women, because we're over 50% of the population. I hear you, but it's these smaller groups, gays, Jews, blacks, the very people that the Nazis went after. That if we don't see that we're all in the same boat when you've got a potential fascist regime taking power in this country, then shame on us. And sort of ranking, oh, we suffered more, oh, you suffered more. Every one of these groups have suffered, and the individuals in them have often suffered horrifically. And it doesn't get us anywhere to say who's the most hated, who's got the worst deal. The fact is, when white people take power like they're trying to do in the Republican Party right now, what is the Republican Party? All of these groups are going to be the other. And that's dangerous for us.
Yep. Yeah, and even... I don't know. I might be getting too far off now, but the fact that they're not even going to nominate anybody in Pennsylvania for any of the major races, sort of.
Well, because they can't, because they have to. They don't want to run afoul of Donald Trump. They don't want to. They're running scared. There is no party there anymore. There's no party there.
Let's see what the rabble gives us, and we'll
yeah, that's right.
get behind them.
That is correct. That is correct. So, hey, thanks for the call.
Okay, take care.
Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Barbara says, I hesitate to suggest you did not represent what Whoopi was suggesting when you said something like she didn't care. But I think you did. No, she said something about, I don't have a, it's not, if it's white people killing white people, hey, that's on you guys. That's not, I don't have a horse in this. I mean, I don't know exactly what she said. I don't know. Here, there's somebody trying to figure out how many people the Nazis killed. I mean, they killed so many people. As they killed about 6 million Jews. Yeah, that's true. But that's a population that was over 1/3 of all the Jews in the world. Soviets are the ones who got killed the most in the war. There's no doubt about it. Yeah, the Roma. A lot of folks died. Gays. They rounded them up too. Yeah. I'm reminded of that. Is a Tom Lehrer song about so-and-so this group hates that group, and that group hates this group. The Italians hate the Dutch, and like anybody very much. And there's one line in which he says, and everybody hates the Jews. Right. There is a universality about that hate. There's no doubt about that. I've got a call. Hello.
You're on? Hey, Lynn, it's
yes,
Bill.
You're on, and hi, Bill, and I'm sorry we're sort of running out of time, but I'm getting you in.
Well, I called about the Whoopi situation. When she was suspended, I really piqued my interest, and I Googled, how many races are there? There are 4, and Jews isn't one of them. And I understand what you're saying, but how can we let the fucking Nazis define what the races are?
There aren't 4 races. Where did you see there were 4? There aren't any. It's all bullshit. These are categories that people come up with.
Well,
some of the blackest people.
Here's my
point. Some of the blackest people in the world are not black by our standards. They live in India.
I understand that, but if you're going to come at it from more of an academic sense, because most people don't know that. So by them suspending Whoopi, they lost a huge teachable moment. They should have dedicated a week to talking about race. And because Whoopi is beloved, and a lot of people, this is just my thoughts. I think a lot of people will say, cancel culture again. And just not even think about it.
No, it's Jewish-controlled media shutting her down. It's those Jews didn't like what she said, and so the Jews...
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. Yeah. But it could have been a great teachable moment.
You're right. You are right.
I don't think of myself as a stupid person. I'm a liberal man. I'm a gay man. And how much time have I spent studying race? Not as much as I should have, obviously. And
I'm here to tell you it doesn't exist.
I know, but we still call a person of color that we assume from Africa as black. So if it doesn't exist, why are we doing that?
Because it's how but it doesn't exist. We agree that we will accept these categories.
I understand that.
Do you know how many?
But to try to get that across to the general public is not easy.
No,
right.
Forget it.
Exactly. So you can't really hang your hat on that and say the rest of the people are assholes. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I agree. There's a great, I agree with that.
Okay, so if you come at somebody and saying, race really doesn't exist, well, then you're going to lose that person. You're going to have to explain it in a better, a better way. I'm not being very clear, but
do you think the average person is going to give somebody who could explain that the hour at least that it would be required to explain it? People are interested enough and people are comfortable with the way the world is ordered. We could, you're right. This was an opportunity to educate a few conscientious souls.
But we're going to throw a lot of people away that could be taught. Me being one of them.
Okay.
And if you hold that firm line, it's just like Democrats and Republicans. We can't throw them all away. And things are determined.
See, I agree with you. I do not think she should have been suspended. I was shocked at that. She said something that was incorrect.
Yeah,
if everybody who said something that was incorrect on television and radio were suspended, well, it'd be real quiet around here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love you and I listen to you all the time, and I'm one of those ones that never calls.
You can't say that anymore.
Hey, have a great month off. You really deserve it. We all deserve it. We all deserve it.
Yeah, you all deserve a month off from me. I'll tell you that much.
No, that's not so. But you know what? I have been taking a lot of time off from the news, and it helps.
It does. It does. Yeah. I know it does.
Yeah, I'll look at headlines, and that's about it. But hey, enjoy your time off. Enjoy your day. And
you call again. I'm glad you called.
I will.
I really
take care of yourself.
Okay. You too. Bye-bye. Bye. All righty, guys. I think we done did it. And I thank you very much for listening. And tomorrow, Susan will join us. And hope it'll be worth your while. Join us as well. Enjoy the sun as long as it's going to hang in there. Okay? Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.